iHorror, the official podcast of iHorror.com. This is episode 66, otherwise known as season 4, episode 9. I am your host, James J. Edwards, and with me, as always, is your other host, Jacob Davison. How you doing, Jacob?
Doing pretty good. Fully vaxxed.
Still? You haven't backtracked?
Nope. Well, I mean, it's 2 weeks after my second dose, so I'm good.
Got it. Okay. Also with us yet again is your other host, John Correa. What's going on, Correa?
I just love how at the same time we were like, still? Like,
God. I was just trying to be funny.
Remember, we talked about it. Charlie Clouser was there. It was a good time.
You know what? Since you bring that up, I don't want to suck our own dicks too heavily, but that last episode was awesome. Yeah. Charlie is. Yep. We need to interview him no matter what project he does. If any of you listeners have not listened to our last episode, the interview with Charlie Clouser, just stop this one and go back and listen to that because he's back. He's an incredible interview. And I listened to it when we were recording it and then while editing it. And then I listened to it once it was published. He was a great, and he even made our stupid questions sound smart. He's a great interview.
Yeah. Hoping we have him back for Collector 3.
Yeah. Whatever he does, we need to reach out to him.
Well, if there's going to be another Saw movie, he'll be happy to talk about it.
And it'll be him doing it. He made that perfectly clear.
Oh yeah.
Well, he's the Harry Manfredi of the Saw franchise. Yeah. You just can't. It's not the same without him.
Even if he doesn't score it, he'll have to get a credit because they're going to use Hello Zepp.
At least.
Yeah. So what have you guys been doing? Have we all seen Spiral? Now we didn't see it when we interviewed Charlie. We hadn't seen it. I have seen it,
and I've seen it.
You have not, Korea?
No, working nights. It's hard to get out to the drive-in. So
what'd you think, Jacob?
I really liked it. I thought it was a real return to form for the franchise. Because the later movies just got kind of convoluted, but this, is kind of a fresh start. And I thought it was an interesting concept and really good casting. Like I thought Chris Rock was good in the lead role. And of course, Samuel Jackson is as Samuel Jackson does. Yeah. And of course had some pretty good traps. Like I was squirming. So I had a great time seeing it.
It's the same, but it's different because it's more it concentrates more on the police investigation than the victims. In fact, most of the victims, they show them in flashbacks, as they're investigating the crime scene, which they do that in Saw as well. But so it has more of like a Seven vibe to it than a typical Saw movie. But I think that's what Saw needed, actually. I mean, it like you said, the Saw movies after 3, to me, they all run together, and I re-binged them all for our interview with Charlie, and I was like, oh yeah, number 6 is the one where they, with the scathing healthcare indictment.
Yeah. I do love that one though. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. How ahead of its time was that though?
Yeah, exactly. Like that. Like I think we brought it up last time. It just, like people were complaining that this Saw movie was too political, but then you point back to Saw 6 was an indictment of the healthcare industry.
Now this one, it's, we don't want to spoil anything, but this one seems like it could be ripped from today's headlines as well.
Oh yeah. Very prevalent.
But I mean, I like you said, the traps, there aren't as many of them as there have been in past Saw movies, but the way that they're presented, you're like watching it through your fingers. You're like, oh no, don't do that, don't do that. They're not for the squeamish.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a quality over quantity situation.
Yeah. And it's the perfect length. It's I think 93 minutes. It gets in, gets out, gets done. It doesn't, because some of the Saw movies, particularly I think it's number 3. They tend to linger a little, but this one doesn't at all.
Yeah, no, this one was very distilled.
Yeah, some of the later ones, it almost feels like like you can treat it. Some of the later ones, it almost feels like you could treat it like a Walking Dead season, where you can watch the beginning, watch the middle, few of the kills, and then just make sure you're there for the end because it's just going to tell you everything, and then you can almost miss like everything else. But 6 is definitely like the highlight of the later ones. I the only one I haven't finished is Jigsaw, because I started watching it and then I fell asleep, and I just haven't felt a need to go back with it. That one was a bit rough viewing, but hey, they're fun movies. I'm excited to see that at the drive-in next weekend. But Jacob, you saw it in IMAX, right? How was it seeing the traps on the big screen?
Oh man, it was a blast. It's just, yeah, no, it was very intense, and especially with the sound quality. We really got to hear Charlie's soundtrack in full, and yeah, no, just you hear every creak, every squeak of the traps. So no, I feel like that really added to the experience.
I was glad that we interviewed him before seeing it, because then I could pay attention. Like, he was saying that there's a lot of like hip hop remixes of his score, and I totally heard them all. Like, it's a real urban score to this one, and so like, for scene changes, it'll bust into like a hip hop song, but then you listen to it and the stems are Saw music. It was really interesting to pay attention to that now that since we knew going into it.
One of my favorite parts is Chris Rock's character outright referencing New Jack City, because he's in that.
New Jack City's so good.
Did you catch, because Chris Rock's character's name is Zeke Banks.
Ezekiel.
Did you catch you catch Samuel L. Jackson calling him Ezekiel?
yeah. It was pretty good with those kind of references and homages.
What else has been going on? What else you guys been seeing?
Well, have you guys heard of this movie, The Queen of Black Magic? It's playing on Shudder right now.
I've heard of it. I haven't had the chance to watch it.
Ooh, you need to watch this one. It is, but not. It's a remake of a 1981 cult film, and it is absolutely phenomenal. It's a witch movie, and the whole premise is this group of people who were orphans and grew up in this orphanage go back because the guy who ran it is dying, and so they're showing their kids around where they grew up and all this stuff, and the movies, people start dying and like. Creepy things are happening. I'm trying not to spoil too much, but it's absolutely phenomenal. It was one of those ones where we turned on Shudder and they just had it playing on the channel. And so usually when it happens, if it's something that we don't know, we'll watch like a scene or something and just to like, get a preview and see. And we got so pulled in by this one scene. We're like, oh shit, we got to watch this whole thing. So we restarted from the beginning. And I got to say, this movie pulls no fucking punches. Like it's everyone is fair game when it comes to being, having bad things happen to them, including there's a few children in it. And there's a terrifying scene with one kid. Shudder has both the new and the original. I haven't watched the original one yet, but the new Queen of Black Magic is absolutely phenomenal.
As for me, I got and played for the entirety of Resident Evil 8.
Ooh.
Yeah, and man, it was good. Like, definitely one of the best survival horror games I've played in a long time.
How do you feel, Jacob? Because I've seen that there's people complaining that since 6, they've been kind of moving away from zombies and doing other stuff. Like this one's got werewolves and vampires and creepy dolls. And it seems like they're going into the other types of horror. Are you mad about that at all?
Not at all. Well, that's the thing. It's like, the content may be a little different, but it still has the same spirit of Resident Evil. And that's the thing, too. It was a very dynamic shift with the last game, Resident Evil 7, going from third person to first person, which this is a continuation of. So it's also first person. But yeah, that's the funny thing, too, that Resident Evil 7 was kind of the game's take on backwoods and was set in the Southwest. And this new game, Resident Evil 8, is kind of the Resident Evil Universal Monsters or Gothic horror set in Romania or somewhere in Eastern Europe. So like it has its own kind of style and monster stuff. There are a lot of lichens, as they're called, just just werewolves out the woodwork. It was pretty intense. Some parts of the game just like really got into your face, and it also had a lot more psychological horror to it too. Like there was actually some Silent Hill comparisons. Like God, like there's this whole level where you're in this creepy, like kind of haunted seeming mansion with all these dolls, and you just can't tell like what's happening or like what's really happening. But yeah, a lot of great monsters. I did get chased by the giant vampire lady, and she did rip my arm off, but I got it back on. So
yeah, it'll grow back.
I stuck it back on. It's all good. But it was interesting because it did play kind of like Resident Evil 2 or 3, where you're being stalked by like Mr. X or Nemesis, like you're in this castle, except in this case you're being stalked by a giant 10 foot tall vampire lady with like with Freddy Krueger claws.
Nice.
I've been actually watching movies again since there's no curling to see, and one movie I watched, it's called At Night Comes Wolves. Have you guys heard about this one?
Yeah, that's the One Night Ultimate Werewolf movie, right? I think that's the board game it's based off of.
Now, it has nothing to do with werewolves. It's about a woman who leaves her neglectful husband, and as she's getting away from him, she meets another woman who basically gets her to join a cult, and everything is connected, including the husband and everything out. It's not really that good. It's the concept is kind of cool, and it's engaging enough at the beginning, but it's got this real student film vibe that it just, I can't quite put my finger on what. I mean, it's just amateurish. See, it seems like everything about it, the script, the acting, the way it's shot, everything just screams student film. It's like film students had a bunch of money, so they made a movie. But I think it might be Gravitas Ventures. It's a real distributor. So it's not, I mean, you can find it on VOD, but I don't know if I'd recommend it unless, maybe when it comes to Netflix and it's quote free,
In terms of other watches, I got another package from Vinegar Syndrome, and this one was really good. Like, let's see. We got that director's cut of Kevin Tenney's monster movie, The Cellar. That was pretty good. I also really like this movie, All American Murder, which is kind of a giallo slasher inspired hybrid with Christopher Walken being his most Christopher Walken.
How was that? Because I ordered a bunch, but one of the discs I ordered was a pre-order, so mine's not coming in for a minute.
Oh, it was really good. I wasn't really sure what to expect going in, but it's kind of like Pieces, with like a giallo vibe, because it's like this a bunch of murders going on at this conservative southern campus, and like the dude who's the most likely suspect is also trying to investigate, and Christopher Walken plays this like really badass macho cop named Detective Decker. And nice. His opening scene is him like at a hostage negotiation and basically freeing the hostage by pissing off the criminal who's keeping hostages so much by telling him how much he fucked his wife.
Beautiful. I'm so happy I ordered that. I can't wait for it to come just off that description.
Yeah, no, you get 100%, 200% Christopher Walken.
Is it a Christopher Walken performance if he doesn't dance, though? Does he dance in the movie?
Yeah, he dances a little bit. Not King of New York level, but, he does a little jig.
Okay, because that's his trademark. Christopher Walken always dances in his movies.
Oh, yeah, just like that music video he did. What was it again?
Fatboy Slim, Weapon of Choice?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Oh, man, they just uploaded that in 4K, and it looks so good.
It does. I watched it the other day. But yeah, although one of the big highlights of the Vinegar Syndrome releases that I had to share was their new Homegrown Horrors Volume 1 set, where they took a bunch of late 80s, early 90s regional horror movies and put them in one box set. And it's from, it's from 3 different states, including our home state of Massachusetts. Like, because one of the big draws for me was that they restored and re-released a movie I can't believe they actually did for Winter Beast, Are you familiar?
Only in you talking about it in previous episodes. That's the Emerson student one, right?
Yeah. Or yeah, I always forget if it was like students or alumni, but yeah, it's like this kind of Evil Dead style riff that a bunch of people from I think like either Emerson students or alumni shot in I think it was northern Massachusetts and New Hampshire. And it's basically, like an Evil Dead thing about this place called the Wild Goose Lodge, where like all these totem demons are rising, and there's a bunch of them, and like some of them are stop motion, some of them are dudes in suits, some of them are prosthetics, and it's kind of a mess, but it just has a bunch of scenes of cool stop motion monsters killing people. But yeah, so that was a fun one to revisit. And yeah, there's also this monster movie from Ohio called Beyond Dream's Door, which is kind of like like a Nightmare on Elm Street meets like Inception or Jacob's Ladder. It's like this kind of dream within a dream thing, but with a lot more gooey practical effects monsters. So that was pretty fun. And the last one, Fatal Exam, which is this Missouri kind of satanic slasher movie about these parapsychology students who take a final exam going at a house where all these satanic murders took place, and there may be demons and stuff in there, which is kind of interesting. But oh my god, it was like nearly 2 hours long. It just had such an insane runtime. It was just kind of a slog to go through. Ooh. Yeah, it was some, it's one of those things like a lot of these regional movies are made by amateurs and people making their movie for the first time, so they run with it. But it had its moments, and I'm just always happy to see like kind of regional and forgotten movies like this kind of get their due, and and get astounding restorations and new special features and stuff, because like this is an entire box set, and like all these are 2K transfers, all of them are packed with special features, so it's pretty amazing. But Vinegar Syndrome does it again, and so stoked for the halfway to Black Friday sale in a couple weeks.
Oh yeah, I was about to say I might have to get that homemade one if a bit closer to one of their sales, depending on. I always keep an eye on how many copies are left and if I'll be able to get it. So this halfway to Black Friday sale, I'm going to try to get the Forgotten Giallo Volume 3. So that's on the list, as well as I pre-ordered the Everything bundle, which isn't everything, but it's mostly everything. But I'm looking forward to that.
Speaking of pre-orders, did you guys see that Ship to Shore is hitting another home run with the Dead and Buried soundtrack?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was an instant pre-order for me.
Yeah, no, they've been placing their marketing, because that came out around the same time Joe Bob was doing The Last Drive-In, and they did Dead and Buried along with Mandy.
I wonder how Justin knew that Joe Bob was going to do Dead and Buried in order to.
Well, he produces it.
Really?
You don't say.
It's almost like we've had him on the show. The weird thing about Dead and Buried, and I actually passed on this bundle because it's a little too niche for me, but there's a bundle you can get it with a 78 of the 2 songs that the Mortician listens to, the old scratchy phonograph, old-timey songs. But right. I don't have a 78 player. It would just be something, it's cool to have. So, I pre-ordered just the score on Potter's Bluff blue vinyl.
Nice.
See, that doesn't surprise me at all. One of the first releases that Ship to Shore did was it was a Tiny Tim album on a Edison phone.
Yeah.
Roll. I forget what they're called. If it's a roll or if it's a tube, or
it's like a wax tube. Yeah.
Yeah, but it sold out so quick, and I've talked to him many times about it. He's like, yeah, I was surprised that anyone bought it, but there was actually people who had an Edison phone and could play it. So it was weird. Like,
wow,
we made this thing and we couldn't even listen to it.
It surprises me that they found customers who could listen to it, because it seems like the kind of thing that's just, they're not shy about putting out cassette releases.
Yeah.
And, and I'm like, does anybody have a cassette player anymore? But those are more common than 78 players.
Oh, people have cassette players. You know who has cassette players? Heavy metal fans. working at Amoeba, dude, like we would sell like black metal cassette tapes for like 17-18 bucks a pop, like brand new ones. And the metal fans ate that shit up. They're like, this is the only way to listen to this album. I'm like, in your car? Because there's no way you have a cassette player outside of that. I mean, I do, but I have one of those ones that like you can hook it up to your computer and transcribe it to MP3. But I mostly bought that because I did get the Over the Garden Wall cassette tape for Sarah that Mondo put out a while ago.
Good choice.
Yeah, it's really good. So I absolutely fell in love with Synchronic last year, remember?
Oh, yeah.
After watching it, I immediately bought all of those directors' movies, and I've been slowly like working my way through it. And we just watched Spring the other day. Holy crap, dude. Like, I'm so upset that wasn't on my radar sooner, because that was just such a phenomenally made film. Because it's you know, a lot of times when people are like, oh, it's a love story disguised as a monster movie, but that's literally what this movie was. It was a love story, and it had like this really well done monster story with great mythology. And of course, with those directors, their science is always like, they always throw in like hardcore sci-fi into it, so they, you know, mix in mythology with it and whatnot. But oh man,
I thought you were going to say their science is impeccable. I'm like, oh no,
it's not impeccable, but it is. They stretch, but it's
believable.
Yeah, but they go hard with the hard sci-fi. They like Synchronic was really close with it, you know. Obviously, it's never going to be 100% perfect unless they actually conduct those tests and whatnot. But I mean, like, still for what could have been just like a cheap, you know, little monster movie with any of their movies, what could have been like a cheap little monster or a cheap little horror film, like they put like an incredible amount of like, you know, science reasoning behind it, which I always respect. You know, like, this isn't just weird stuff happening. This is weird stuff happening due to, you know, this mathematical formula and this and that's and, you know, they go very Star Trek Voyager with it, you know, just like lots of science, big science words thrown at you.
Yeah, no, they do a really great job of kind of capturing the cosmic horror elements of their stories and, you know, putting that to film, which it's pretty difficult. But yeah, no, just every time I see one of their movies, it does feel like, you know, they're just going beyond. Like, one of my favorites of theirs is The Endless. Like, have you seen that one yet?
That one's next on my list. Yeah.
The Endless is great.
Though you've seen Resolution.
Yep. That was the first one I watched. I figured it started at the beginning, which that one, you know, that one was very, you know, low budget first feature feel to it, but it was for like that. It was very, very well made. I was very happy with that. Yeah, no, they're definitely like quickly up there. And I think I need to watch Synchronic again, because yeah, that movie was so good.
Have you guys seen, there's this movie on Netflix now called Things Heard and Seen.
No.
Don't know that one.
It's Amanda Seyfried is in it, and she's basically her and her husband moved to this house because her husband gets a job in a university, you know, somewhere. So they're like in the country, and the house has a questionable past,
as most houses do.
Well, yeah, most houses in horror movies. It's a pretty cool little, you know, ghost story kind of. It reminded me a lot of What Lies Beneath.
Ooh,
in more ways than one. You know, I don't want to give anything away, but it's if you've seen What Lies Beneath, there's a few things in Things Heard and Seen that will not surprise you, or they might still surprise you, but then you'll be like, oh yeah, I've seen this before. But it's a pretty cool little, you know, little. I shouldn't say little, because I think it is over 2 hours long, but it's a pretty cool little spook movie, you know, a little ghost story.
Nice. I'll have to check that one out. And I need to rewatch What Lies Beneath. I haven't seen that since like I was a kid.
I love What Lies Beneath. It's one of my favorite movies. It was released in, I think, 2000, so it counts as 21st century. So one of my favorite movies of the 21st century. Also, I finally got around to The New Mutants. Have you guys seen The New Mutants?
Oh yeah. I saw that at the drive-in last year.
You know, that one wasn't as bad as everyone keeps saying it is.
I didn't think so. But the thing is, it's very much a horror movie with superheroes.
Pretty much, yeah.
But it didn't go far enough with the horror is the thing. I think
it went far enough with the horror. I don't think I can see why superhero fans hated it, because I don't think it went far enough. it was a little too contained. I wish that it had broken out more, but I thought that it was just right with the horror elements.
I just wanted more, and I know a lot of people complained about the bear at the end, but I thought that was like some of the most fun in that movie was that.
Yeah, Demon Bear,
yeah. I mean, like it's solid. I think I got it digitally for real cheap, and I wasn't upset. It is though. I would say like it's solid, but as like the end of an era of the Fox X-Men franchise, it is a bit sad that like that franchise ended with Apocalypse and then Dark Phoenix in this. Like it's like, oh man, I wish it had like a real grand finale,
Is this the end of is that what the New Mutants is?
Yeah, it was the final Fox X-Men movie.
Okay.
It wasn't supposed to be, but with all the delays and everything, like I think our first episode we talked about the first trailer being dropped.
I think it was supposed to drop before maybe not before X-Men Apocalypse, but definitely before Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
We'll begin the Disney version soon enough.
Yeah.
Also, I saw, and I think Jacob, you saw this too in a double feature with Spiral, Wrath of Man.
Yeah.
The new Guy Ritchie movie. It's not really horror, but
it is intense.
Yeah, it does involve a lot of killing. It's part heist movie, part revenge thriller. And Jason Statham at his most Jason Statham-y.
Oh, very much so.
And Guy Ritchie at his most Guy Ritchie-est too. I mean, it's both of those guys firing on all cylinders.
But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I also saw that in IMAX, which worked out well because like it's set in Los Angeles, and it feels like one of those things where they try to make the city also a character because like there's all these big aerial shots of the city and like all these wide angle shots of like all the streets and roads because it's like about armored trucks, so you never know who's going to be around the corner. But yeah, I think kind of the best way I pitched it to people was like it's kind of like Point Break meets Heat.
Okay.
Because it just has a lot of different crime elements to it, but yeah, it was a lot of fun to see on a big screen.
It's like you think you know where it's going, but then they'll introduce a new set of characters, and you're like, okay, no, now it's going here, and then it'll point you in a different direction with a different character, and you're like, okay, well, there's a few different times where you think you have it figured out, but you don't.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of twists and turns,
which is pretty typical for Guy Ritchie, I guess.
Oh yeah, no, and especially because like he does that thing where it's like told in an anachronistic more order.
Yeah, but it doesn't really ever confuse. Like it's always very clear. 2 months ago, 3 weeks from now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it doesn't ever. You don't have to figure it out like you sometimes have to do with Tarantino. Guy Ritchie hits you over the head with it. This happened before that.
Of the 90s Tarantino knockoff filmmakers, Guy Ritchie was definitely one of the stronger ones.
He knew what he was doing. He knows what he's doing, I should say.
Yeah.
I'm talking about him like he's retiring. Because The Gentleman was good as well.
Yeah, I like that too.
That was a solid back to form.
I was a little nervous after Aladdin. I'm like, is he just taking the paycheck now? But between The Gentleman and Wrath of Man, he didn't get corrupted by the Disney money.
By the House of Mouse.
Yes, House of the Mouse.
Speaking of action, real quick, I have to mention this because I got this Blu-ray for this movie called Raven from 1996. It stars Burt Reynolds as Raven. It is 90s action to almost a fault, but it's fantastic. It's basically,
does it say on the cover Burt Reynolds is Raven?
I think so. Yeah. they make it very clear. The thing is, it's basically Broken Arrow, but with like a way smaller budget, like super low. But it's interesting because Burt Reynolds is the title character, but he's not the protagonist. He's the antagonist for most of the movie, and it's just Burt Reynolds being Burt Reynolds in an action role, which is fantastic. It's great seeing him like that, especially an older Burt. But because that was only a few years before Boogie Nights, and it's just such a time capsule of its time. Like, there's gratuitous and unnecessary sex scenes with a very well endowed female actress. The protagonist is supposed to be this big action star, but he's not that great of an actor. And like in the third act, all of a sudden, like Burt Reynolds, who's been like, he's almost kind of like Dennis Hopper in Speed, and just kind of like always ahead of everybody and kind of maniacal and doing all this crazy stuff. He suddenly becomes the protagonist, he becomes one of the good guys. And then the movie just kind of ends. like just ends. And then they're driving off together, and it ends with like a title card just saying like, and Raven disappeared. No one knows where he is, but he is still working. And it's like, what the fuck? Did this guy suddenly become like I know he's the title character, but he wasn't like the movie's named after him, but he's not the main character. And then all of a sudden at the end of the movie, they treat it like he was the entire time.
Poochie died on the way back to his home planet.
Exactly. It's a very weird, but very fun 90s. If you like 90s action films like Action USA and stuff like that, I highly recommend Raven. I think I got it from Hamilton Books for $5. So, and the transfer looks good. So yeah, definitely if you're doing a bulk order from there, just add it to your cart. You won't regret it.
While we're talking kind of crime movies and stuff, I also saw the Bill Murray movie Quick Change a little bit ago.
That's a fun movie.
Oh yeah, it's so good. It just got a release from Warner Archive, and yeah, I feel like it's so underrated because it's like this crime caper movie where the first third of the movie is about the bank heist, and then the rest of the movie is about Bill Murray and his cohorts trying to escape New York. And it's like a daytime after hours where just one thing after another keeps on impeding them. And it has a really stacked cast too, because you got Bill Murray, Gina Davis, Randy Quaid, Phil Hartman pops up. Tony Shalhoub's in there. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I love that there have been so many comparisons to the Joker because Bill Murray's character robs the bank while dressed as a clown.
I haven't seen Quick Change since it was in theaters, which was, I think, the 80s, probably 88, 89. But the thing I remember most about it is I loved because like you said, he robs this bank dressed as a clown, and how he escapes is pure freaking genius.
Yeah.
How he is, I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it, but I'm like, oh my God, why has no one done this in real life?
They all go into a clown car.
It's not quite that genius, but it's close.
Yeah. And yeah, it makes me wish that Bill Murray directed more, because it's like the only thing he ever I guess co-directed, but still.
But now, Jacob, you have me thinking of Escape from New York, but starring Bill Murray. And now I just want to see that movie real bad. Maybe have it directed by Wes Anderson, just for shits and giggles. Like, that would be such a weird movie. Like, I'd watch the shit out of that.
Oh, I would too. That actually sounds like an incredible pitch.
And another thing that I saw on I think it's on Shudder. And we talked about it on our episode with Bree and Kelly. I finally saw Violation. Have either of you guys watched Violation?
No, I haven't seen that.
It's heavy. It is. It's just as heavy as Kelly made it out to be. It is. It's a rape revenge movie. And what we were talking about there about how it's presented. There's a trigger warning at the beginning of the movie, clearly. And I saw some guy on the iHorror fans page saying, I don't understand why there's a trigger warning on this. I mean, it shows an erect penis, but nothing else. There is a rape in this. That's where it needs a trigger warning. And it's dealt with. I mean, it shows it like in super close-ups of like, bodies and, and faces and stuff like that. So it's not like as brutal as, say, I Spit on Your Grave, but it still would trigger the hell out of someone who's been through that. So I'm like, different people are triggered by different things, and this would absolutely trigger someone who's been through that. The erect penis triggered you. This rape scene is going to trigger someone else. But it's heavy. It's a pretty heavy movie.
I think people need to get over seeing a penis in a movie. Like, if we've been seeing boobs in movies forever, like free the peen, That's the one thing I respect about Game of Thrones, is that it showed flaccid penis,
In Violation, I was impressed that, I don't know if they used, Viagra or something, but I was impressed that he was able to keep his erection for all of that filming. Because I'm like, there's nothing less sexy than a movie set, and that's why adult film stars, I'm always like, how do they get in the mood, with all these it's like that scene in Boogie Nights where they're shooting Dirk's first sex scene. They have to change the film mag. So William H. Macy stands between the camera and Mark Wahlberg and Julianne Moore while they change the mag. And it's like, what is, and then he asks me, does it look sexy? He's like, yeah, it looks great, kid.
And I forgot to bring this up earlier with the Spiral discussion, but did you guys see that New York Post review that went viral?
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, there was this like New York Post review that derided the movie and horror fans in general. And I'm not going to look up the exact quote, but it was one of those kind of denigrating reviews. It's like you have to be some kind of sick, twisted monster to like these movies, and like horror fans should stay away from like animals and living things. And yeah, it kind of took some rounds the other day, but it's just kind of funny to me that like there's still that kind of mindset that if you like horror, then like you're disturbed or like there's something wrong with you.
I mean, all horror is just modern mythology is what it comes down to. Right? Like all mythology has that good versus evil basic storyline to it. And that's all horror is. Is Jason and Freddy not our Jason and the Argonauts or are, like that's all it is. It's just like modern mythology. So, I mean, like there's always going to be people that go, oh, you got to be sick and depraved to like this. And,
the Saw movies, I think they get a bad rap is because I don't really consider them torture porn. I mean, sure, the traps are hard to watch and they clearly torture the people in them, but it's not like, like Turistas or Hostel, it's dealt with differently.
Yeah.
I think the Saw movies get a bad rap. And especially Spiral probably has the most story of any of the Saw movies, aside from the first one. It's more than just, I mean, clearly there are traps in it and the traps are great, but it's more than just the traps. You've got, developed characters and you've got a pretty well plotted story. So of all movies for him to make that claim about, was this just boiling up in him and then he decided to take it out on Spiral because it's the first horror movie to be released?
Or it might just be clickbait. I've seen a lot of articles and stuff that are like that, where it's just like they just make an outrageous claim and it's like you're reading and you're like, I feel like you did this on purpose just to get that hate click. That
was the New York Post. So
that's what I was going to say. You said it was the New York Post, right? They're that's a clickbait publication anyway. So yeah, there's your answer.
And Twitter loves giving into that and jumping on the train with that hate. It's like the woman who had the silly opinion about Alien not being a horror film, and everyone just started jumping down her throat. And it's like, hey man, we're all entitled to our opinion. Do I think it's a silly and I don't agree with an opinion? Of course. But hey, you know what? It's not going to change my view of the Alien movies.
The way that she worded it though was stupid. She's like, she's all, defend your position. And then she says, my defense, horror can't be set in space. I'm like, Event Horizon says what? You're like, I mean, some of the scariest movies, Alien included, some of the scariest movies ever made are in freaking space. So, shut the fuck up.
Well, I mean, it's just someone who said something. And is it silly? I'm not going to say her, even though I strongly disagree. I mean, come on, cosmic horror. There's nothing more terrifying than the unknown. And what's more unknown to us than space other than deep below the ocean, So yeah, it's a silly opinion, and to take that strong of a stance with it was silly. But I think there was people went too far with it, and it happens a lot. Like there's definitely some stuff to like jump on that type of train for, but like a silly opinion like that, I think people, it was good that people were like, Event Horizon, this example, these are all good examples, but there's some stuff where it's just like, come on. I think proper trains of hopping on stuff like that is there was a lot of pushback on Resident Evil cosplayers, particularly black cosplayers, because people were saying that black people can't be vampires. That is something to like jump at, because there's a plethora of examples. Blackula, Blade, the list
Vampire in Brooklyn.
It goes on forever, but also vampires don't fucking exist. All right. So there's, when people are like, oh, you can only kill a vampire this way. No, they don't fucking exist. It's not like a fish. A fish. Yeah. You take a fish out of water. We all know because they exist and they die. These are mythical things, but also vampire lore exists in every culture. Vampires, some form of lycanthrope, and dragons. Humans are very unoriginal. Every culture has something along those three lines. So to make racist and stupid claims like that, yeah, that I can understand hopping on. But saying something silly as like, you can't do horror in space. That's silly.
To my original point, it's just I thought the review was interesting because like some of the comments and responses on that were actually very well nuanced, and more went to like kind of the history of kind of horror reviews, and that like. Like people were saying, like, this is exactly like how reviews would treat a lot of horror movies back in the 80s, where it was, like deriding to people, to fans of horror movies that, they're the problem, along with the movie being the problem. And if you like the movie, then there's something wrong with you, which, it's just something weird to say nowadays because, horror has gone considerably mainstream. It like, to James's point that it's like the Spiral is like the first major horror movie release since the pandemic. So I feel like that's probably a factor, but yeah, no, I don't think people were going too far in their responses to it. And, they were just like, oh, what's this guy's problem?
My issue with the woman on Twitter was, she was like, I'll defend in the comments. And then her whole defense was horror can't be set in space. It's like, okay, first of all, you're wrong. Horror can be set in space. So if that's your whole defense, it's blown out of the water by any number of horror movies set in space. I mean, Leprechaun 4, hello. Every horror franchise that's worth its salt has been to space.
Friday the 13th, Hellraiser,
yeah. Life. Remember Life?
Oh my gosh, Life. Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to our topic, which we're keeping things pretty light this time because mainly by my request, because I wanted a guest-free episode that I didn't have to stress over editing. Since theaters are opening back up, we're going back to theaters, and we do a lot of talk about, we have over the last 14 months, a lot of talk about COVID and, theater at home, stuff like that. So we're going to talk a little now about going back to theaters, because I think that the three of us have had three very different experiences with it. I'll go first. I have been to the theater one time since they've lifted the mask or not even lifted the mask mandates, since the world has been kind of opening up. And it was to a press screening of Spiral. And it was, I thought the experience was positive. I loved being in a theater again. I couldn't tell if my tears were, if my glasses were fogging up from my tears of joy or from my mask. But this was also a press screening. There were about 10 people in the theater. We were all way far away from each other. Plus, everybody was comparing Vax cards when we got there and we're waiting to go in too. So, because it was all critics that haven't seen each other in 14 months. So we were all catching up and being excited to see each other. And that's the only time that I have been. And that's pretty much par for the course for me. Ever since MoviePass ended, I don't really go to movies that aren't press screenings. What have your guys' experiences been going back to movies? I know Jacob has pretty much been going every day. I see it on Facebook. I think he's been going to a double feature every day.
Well, I've seen 7 movies in theaters since I was fully vaxxed earlier this month. But yeah, no, it's been a pretty decent experience on my end. As soon as it was safe and like I was fully inoculated, I decided to go for it. First movie I saw in theaters was Mortal Kombat in IMAX at the Universal AMC IMAX, which, for those who don't know, I believe is the biggest and most high-tech IMAX theater in LA County. Because I just wanted to see a spectacle, and I wanted to see something big and loud on the big screen. I just went to like a weekday afternoon screening, so there wasn't that many people there, and I felt pretty distanced. I was, of course, wearing my Jason Voorhees mask. And everybody else, was kind of keeping their distance and like wearing masks when they weren't eating or whatever. Yeah. And, it was weird because, like I'd been going to the drive-in a bunch, so it didn't hit me as heavily emotionally, I guess, but it still just felt really damn good to be back in a theater and see something on the big screen. And the 2 other places I've really been going to, they reopened the former Cinefamily Fairfax Theater. It's like under control this art apparel collective called Brain Dead Studios, and they're doing like an all body horror thing this month. So like I went opening night for Akira. That was a blast. I sat front row, and I was there the other day for The Skin I Live In, the Pedro Almodovar movie. And yeah, both times,
talk about heavy movies.
Yeah, well, heavy on the body horror.
Yeah.
And yeah, for the most part, I felt pretty safe. It's all distance seats or like half capacity, and pretty much everybody's been courteous or like wearing their mask most of the time. And yeah, I mean, I don't know about vaccination status, but I'm hoping that only people who have been vaccinated are going, but who knows? But overall though, it's felt pretty damn good to be back in the theaters.
How about you, Korea? We've been saving this one.
Yeah. I was very excited. It took a lot to go to the theater. I got really excited about the Scott Pilgrim re-release, especially with updated sound mixing with Dolby Atmos and all that. It took a lot to just kind of prepare myself for it, and I wasn't. This is just flat out. We went to an AMC in Burbank, and it was such a strange feeling walking into a theater again. And the main reason why I wanted us to talk about all this is because it's weird, because like I've been working through the pandemic. I've been working on TV productions and movie productions and all this stuff over the last year, and where there's hundreds of people on set, but there's protocols, and we're mostly outside, and and I know everyone's following it because we have to in order to work. But going into that theater, it was otherworldly, because we sat down and was getting okay with it. We went on like a Friday at like noon, so we were trying to go at a time where there was like no one. But there was like maybe 9 other people in the theater, and most of them weren't wearing masks. Like as soon as they sat down, mask came off, which I was like, oh, they're gonna eat. No, dude, this one guy didn't even have food. He just took his mask off immediately. I don't know the status of their vaccine. At that point, we were past the time where ours was fully kicked in, but it was nerve-wracking. I mean, first of all, it's AMC. They do a terrible job of making sure people follow, the basic theater etiquette, with phones and talking and all this stuff. So of course they're not going to do a great job of ensuring that people are wearing masks when not eating. But it's one of those things where even though we were fully vaccinated and double masked, we had the surgical and a K95 on. The anxiety was. I'm getting jittery just talking about it, but like there's a psychological effect that has happened to all of us the last year. We've gone through an event, and it's been over a year, and it's still going. There's trauma there, and that affects people. And so I think that's awesome, Jacob, that you're able to go and experience it. And that's awesome. And, there's going to be a lot of people like that. And I think that's awesome. And you're being responsible about it. You're wearing your mask. You're around people who are too. And that's fantastic. But there's definitely going to be some PTSD with this. And so for a lot of people, I think it's going to be very difficult. And we left. It was almost thankful that the movie got started 15 minutes late, because we bailed before it. And AMC was really good about refunding us and apologizing and all that. But at the end of the day, like it's not going to be easy. There's going to be for some people, it's going to be difficult. And with that, you just might need to take some more time. I know for us, we've been really happy going to Mission Tiki. It's a bit of a drive, but we make a day out of it. We go hiking and stuff beforehand, but it's going to take some time. And I think even if there is a day when it's all done and we don't have to wear masks at all, it's still going to take some getting used to for some people. And it's not just movie theaters, it's public places, malls, all that stuff. So I just want, listeners who have similar experiences or things to know that you're not alone. Even me, the jackass who lived in movie theaters for a while, is having trouble with it. And your feelings are super valid. Maybe even just taking little steps, like just entering into a lobby, or just, I don't know. You might have to, once everything's good, if we ever get to that point, treat it like going to the gym, for the first time in years. You got to just, work your way up to getting to the machines,
No, and I mean, that's all completely valid, considering everything we've gone through this last year. I mean, I wasn't sure where I was going to be mentally by the time theaters reopened, but I just I did the research on the vaccines, and I tried to do what you've been doing, John. That I tried to go to screenings where there'd be the least amount of people, plus like places where they would most likely follow the rules. Like a repertory theater, like the Brain Dead Studios. Yeah. So yeah, it did take mental preparedness. Like I had to kind of go into my head, and I took my masks with me, and I did take a medical mask too, just to be safe. But yeah, no, it's like different. It's different strokes for different folks. Like it's people are gonna be affected, proceed differently, and. You raise a good point, just that, it's not just movie theaters. Like, I've been hearing that, I'm not exactly sure if it's on a national level or, just depending on areas, but, like some stores are now getting rid of their mask mandate policies. And, that just feels really weird. Like I'd probably have more trouble like shopping if people aren't wearing masks.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's just a strange situation. It's going to end. People are going to respond differently. It's going to take different amount of times for them to acclimate to different situations.
Also, how do you know the people who are going to lie about being vaccinated? These are the same people who are still trying to hang on to the lie that Trump won the election. Mm-hmm. You can't trust somebody to say, "Oh yeah, I'm vaccinated. I'm not wearing this mask," because these are the people who haven't wanted to wear a mask from the beginning. I don't know. I don't know when it's ever going to happen, but the screenings I go to, the press screenings, I don't know if they're ever going to, usually they open them up to like promo to like the public. And then there's like a press section. I don't know if they're ever going to open it up to the public again, but if they do, I'm a little nervous about that because, I don't want to get all judgmental, but the people who come to the promo screenings, first of all, there's like the same 20 people. I don't know if it's the same up in LA, but in San Diego, there's like 20 people that you will see at every screening. I don't know what these people do for jobs. I don't know how they get their passes, but it's like the same people.
I've been those people.
And I don't know if I trust these people to sit near me without a mask. Are you vaxxed? You can't even trust if they've got a card because they're selling bootlegs of the cards. It's like, you just can't trust people.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that a lot of what has been done the last year and what we've had to like kind of train ourselves is to always be on the lookout for danger, right? Like, yeah, just like that fight or flight has been on overdrive, and it's been like a constant like, oh, I'm even just simple hiking outside. Oh, I'm walking. Oh, there's someone coming. I got to put on my mask. I don't view that person as a threat, but I recognize that there can be a threat surrounding that person, So, but like when you're outside and stuff, even going, I get social anxiety just going to the grocery store, non-pandemic times. That's a very big anxiety thing for me. I don't know why. I fucking eat. Like I've been to the grocery store many times in my life, but it's for some reason it still triggers something. So during the pandemic, that was through the fucking roof. That's probably why I lost weight, was not going to the grocery store that often. But like, because of that, like, there's still that mindset with it. So yeah, me sitting in the back of the theater at the highest point I could be, I was scanning, I was looking, I was watching. That person took off their mask. They haven't eaten anything. Are they going to put it back on? They're not going to put it back on. That person's eating popcorn. They haven't, so like that mode is still going, that searching is still going, even though I'm fully vaxxed and double masked.
And at that point, you can't enjoy the movie. If you had stayed for the movie to actually start, instead of the movie, you're watching all the other people around you.
Exactly. And I already do that in movie theaters too. The second I see a cell phone light turn on, my focus is on that person.
Well, that's different though, because you can't help but look at a bright cell phone that turns on when someone's
and I'm definitely that guy who will come down, tap you on the shoulder and go, put that the fuck away.
Oh yeah.
But like,
as you're right. But
what am I going to do? Am I going to go up to, it's like, am I going to go up to people in the theater and say, hey, you got to put on your mask? I can't, like I'm not going to stick around for that. And that's why, hey, those people are going to be at the movie theaters. They're going to see the movies in theaters. That's fine. I just know for me, it's not worth the anxiety. Who knows? Maybe next week I will be in a movie theater. Maybe it won't be until next year. I'm not putting, an expiration date on these feelings because I don't know when they're going to leave. I would like to, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to support movies. I'm still going to buy, I'm going to keep buying Blu-rays. I'm going to keep doing VOD, all that stuff. And that's fine. I have a new sound bar. I have a 4K TV, I have a pretty dope setup here. So like, I'm comfortable where I am right now of not going. And, Mission Tiki still fucking kills it with their double features. So, it's going to be a long road, dude. Like, and we're going to be dealing with this for, it's kind of like, older generations that lived through the Depression, and they still have those habits from that time. You have that grandparents that like hide, stuff where they hoard, supplies and whatnot. I feel like we're going to be feeling and seeing that for years to come.
Don't even open the hoarding gas can of worms. This sounds like a good place for us to step away and quit here. So
yeah.
Let us know though, faithful listener, what your experiences with theaters are. Because I think that ours are all across the board. So let's find out what the norm is. So yeah, with that, let's get out of here. Our theme music is by Restless Spirit. They're making a new record. Have you guys seen that?
No, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
They're in the studio. Paul keeps posting pictures of his pedal board and his and his rigs. So yeah, it's gonna be good. Our artwork is Chris Fisher. So give Chris a like as well. I don't know what's going on with him. He was knee deep in his Star Wars fan movie, and then I haven't heard anything about that. So.
He's still doing stuff. He's just not posting as often, I think. Which
is weird because usually artists are they never shut up about their art. But he's he's pretty low key about it though. So you have to chase him down. As far as we're concerned, you can find any of us at the Ion Horror Facebook page, the iHorror Facebook page, the Ion Horror Twitter, Letterboxd, Instagram. Still no Grinder. We're waiting on. But we're not hard to find. You can also find us at iHorror.com, which is where we all call home. And that's pretty much it for this episode. So let us know what your theater going experiences are like, and we will see you in a couple weeks. So for me, James J. Edwards.
I'm Jacob Davison.
I'm Jonathan Correa.
Keep your eye on horror.